Okay, I think we'll get going there. So thank you for joining our webinar today. My name's Neil Armstrong. I'm from Tribepad, and I'm going to be taking you through some research that we've done recently about the state of the recruitment sector. I think it's fair to say that there is more pressure than ever for talent acquisition. There's a lack of candidates, there's counter offers, everybody's trying to deliver on their ED&I initiatives, there's pressure on overheads, there's escalating advertising costs. And we wanted to understand what recruiters are facing right now and therefore how we can help. And we think that's really important. So we have undertaken this piece of research. It's called the Talent Acquisition Frontline. We spoke to more than 500 recruiters and asked them about candidate quality, asked them about performance measurement, and how talent acquisition is viewed within the organization. So I'm going to take you through some of the key findings there, which I think you're going to find very useful. So first of all, let's talk about stress, the biggest issues. Some 72% of recruiters are experiencing stress at some level of work. And 1 in 3 recruiters are actually struggling to cope, or they're at breaking point. So yeah, this is a real problem for our industry right now. Perhaps this is you, perhaps it's somebody in your team or in your organization. So we've got some thoughts on how we can work with this. Before we get into the research in a bit more detail, I'll just spend 2 minutes telling you a quick word about Tribepad. So we're on a mission to deliver more smiles at work. So that's happier recruiters, happier job seekers, and more satisfied employees. And we deliver fairer, faster, better recruitment for everyone through our talent acquisition platform. Fosway says we're a strategic leader. IDC says we're a major player. And if you want to find a job at more than 120 of the UK's best known organisations, whether that's the leader of a council, store assistant in Tesco, vicar in the Church of England, or a nurse in the NHS, our customers use our platform to advertise their jobs, source and engage their talent pools, screen candidates, conduct video interviews, offer contracts, and then welcome and onboard new starters. And our platform is used by more than 25 million people in 16 languages worldwide. A really key part of the platform is the partner ecosystem, where we have more than 100 different integrations to recruitment marketing tools, candidate assessments, background checks, and of course, the all-important HR and payroll systems to deliver an end-to-end experience. And recently we launched a new product called Tribepad Grow, which is all about organizations who are growing, perhaps from 100 to 1,000 employees, and want the power and the features of an enterprise talent acquisition platform with something that's easy to deploy, simple to configure, and gives you exactly what you need. Okay, enough of the sales pitch. Let's get back to the research. So we're looking at stress and why recruiters are so stressed at work. And so we started to dive into the reasons for this. First of all, if you have a look here, the number one cause is not having enough staff in the team and therefore feeling like you're under too much pressure. The next biggest reason was having a lack of talent applying for the roles. We actually worked with Well Pharmacy recently, and when they put Tribepad in, they increased the number of applications from 1,000 to 4,000 per week. So, the right technology can really help address those issues. Pressure to recruit the right people is also a big factor. So 3 of these 4 reasons are sort of internal factors. We know it's a hard job. We know there's lots of pressure from leadership to do more with less. So we feel that recruiters are experiencing this squeeze where there's not enough staff, but there's more work to do. They're potentially underappreciated because perhaps management doesn't understand the challenges that talent acquisition professionals are facing right now. So one of the things that we think is important is to better articulate the value of talent acquisition within the organization, get better working relationships with leaders to help relieve some of this pressure. The next thing we looked at in the research was all about candidates' application quality. So this chart shows the number of recruiters who are saying they'd seen a decline in application quality. And there are some regional variations, but overall, about 60% of recruiters are saying they're getting lower quality applications. There is quite a bit of variance here regionally, but it's really the issue here is about an increase of application spam. So that is applicants who are applying to dozens, sometimes 50 jobs in a session without any real consideration for what they're applying for. It's so easy to apply for a job with one click apply on various job boards that people are just applying for dozens and dozens of roles, which is just creating a whole load of work for everybody. And we know that candidates are then juggling interviews, juggling offers. We even hear stories from our customers where candidates are actually accepting several different jobs, trying a day in each job, seeing which one they like, and then walking out of the one they don't like. So a real candidate-driven market there. And it really highlights how important it is to be able to sift out those unsuitable candidates early in your process so that you're not wasting your time on these candidates who aren't going to go on to be successful hires. So next we looked at what success looks like. One of the key things here is dropout is a real problem for everybody. And whether you're responsible for the onboarding of new staff or whether you're just responsible for the recruitment, when the onboarding fails, you have to go back to the beginning. So we see that people are using quality of hire as a common measure, retention rate, time to hire are the metrics that people are looking at to understand the health of their recruitment funnel. It's good that we can see candidate satisfaction. So about 40% of recruiters say that they are measuring candidate satisfaction, but that's still only a minority. Interestingly, cost to hire and source of candidates is less often measured in the recruitment process. So again, this perhaps suggests that a better way to engage with leadership is to have more financial metrics in front of those leaders so that they understand more about the recruitment process from a financial point of view. That might help unlock more resource, which might reduce some of that stress that we saw right at the beginning. Now, just coming back to stress briefly for a time. Ghosting, we have our campaign called End Ghosting, which is all about the idea of we don't want candidates to be left in the dark, uncommunicated with. And we think it's really, really important because this has a negative impact on candidates' well-being. It also has a negative impact on your employer brand. When people apply for a job, don't hear back, it makes them feel very, very negative. And so we asked recruiters, how important is it to minimize ghosting? And the good news is, 3/4 of people are really keen to minimize ghosting. And in terms of what's causing ghosting, about 34% of people say that it's around the process and the technology. Around 23% say it's down to agencies, 21% say it's down to hiring managers, and about 20% say it's down to time pressure. So again, this links back to the point at the start where what's causing stress for recruiters is the idea that we know we're ghosting candidates, we know we don't want to, but we're so busy trying to fill the role that actually the people who aren't successful are perhaps secondary in our thought process. Just coming towards the end of this piece of research now, one of the things we also wanted to look at was what recruiters are doing to reduce bias in the recruitment process. Equality, diversity, inclusion is right at the top of everybody's agenda at the moment. It's a priority for all kinds of talent acquisitions teams. And it's really, really positive to see there are lots of initiatives in terms of what people are already using and what they're considering. So there's lots of training going on. There's really strong moves towards structured interviews because we know that generally speaking, CVs and unstructured interviews are a very poor way of assessing candidates from an effectiveness point of view. They're also full of bias. But I think one of the things that's really stands out here is that only about 44% of recruiters say they're using diversity data to investigate and instigate change. Now that's interesting because if we're not measuring what's actually happening in the recruitment process, understanding what effects are happening and then making change, if we're just changing things on gut feel, we risk making changes which are actually to the detriment of our recruitment process and to the detriment of our candidates. So it's really important to have the data at the right points, make some changes and have this iterative continuous improvement cycle where you're making data-driven decisions about improving the process. So I think there's an area there for recruiters to do more. And actually, we're still seeing nearly 40% of organizations not using structured approach to interviews. And that feels like a really, really easy win. So where does that leave us as recruiters? Again, thinking about stress and workload and how the senior leadership view us. How satisfied are talent acquisition professionals with their careers? Well, the good news is 50% are satisfied. But the bad news is 50% feel like there's something missing. And concerningly, when we looked into this data, we saw that women are actually twice as likely to be disappointed as men in their careers. So what's happening there? Why are women less happy in their recruitment careers than men are? What are the issues that we need to get hold of there? And how can we improve the satisfaction overall of talent acquisition as a career? And how does this compare to other careers in the organization? So all kinds of interesting information there that came out of our interviews with recruiters. Then what we did was we looked to the other side and we asked the candidates some questions. So this is from our salary, security and purpose survey that we've very recently done, where I've asked just over 1,000 candidates how they're thinking, what they're worried about, what their career plans are, with a view to getting an insight into how that affects their behavior in the recruitment process. So a quick poll for you. We asked the question, and we asked this, just at the start of the year when there was a view that we were going into a recession. So whether we're in recession or not, I think technically we're not now, but there's certainly a financial squeeze for everybody. So we asked the question, what are you most worried about at the moment? Is it job security? Is it pay and benefits? Or is it loss of flexibility? So I'd be really interested to know what you think candidates reported as their main concern right now. So you should see a little pop-up box on the screen here. You can just choose one of the options, and then we'll give it a couple of seconds, and then we'll come back to the answers. So that's job security, pay and benefits, or flexibility. Which of these are the ones that you think candidates are most concerned about at the moment? Okay, the results should come up very shortly. And so 39% of us think job security is the #1 issue, 33% flexibility, and 28% pay and benefits. So a really interesting mix there. So what we actually saw was, by a long way, it's pay and benefits. People are worried about money. In the consumer downturn, cost of living, recession or not, people are really worried about pay freezes, pay cuts. They're worried about losing bonus or other benefits. And that's the thing that's really driving their concern at the moment. Now, security is still an issue. People are worried about losing their job. They're worried about having the likelihood of having to move jobs, worried about losing shifts, or worried about actually losing other colleagues, because we know there's lots of firms doing redundancies. Very recently, today we saw Vodafone announcing potentially 10,000 job losses. So it is something that's on the news agenda, and it's on candidates' mindsets. And then flexibility as well. People have got used to working from home. They're concerned that they might have to do longer hours. They're concerned about being forced back into the office. So with these things that are going on in candidates' head, I guess, what does that do to your likelihood to want to move job right now? Are you moving, are you looking around for another career or not? And probably the single biggest thing that affects whether you're going to look for another role is how happy you are at work. So we asked candidates, how happy are you at work, right? Because it's got the largest factor on whether you're going to move. And actually we saw, good news, 53% are happy at work. Remarkably similar to what we saw within the recruiters, where around half of recruiters are happy. So if 50% are happy, clearly 50% are not happy. And therefore, as recruiters, we know that there is a large pool of people out there who are perhaps not happy with where they're currently working, and therefore are potentials for you to hire into your organization. So a couple of reasons here as to why they are looking, why they're not looking around. So you can see, if you're happy in your job, you stay where you are. We've got quite a number of people here, around a third of people, saying they would like to move, but they can't find anything better. And we've got, again, a similar proportion, about a third, they do want to move, but it's just too much hassle. So thinking about the recruitment process, again, how do we make it easy for the candidate to understand our organization, understand our EVP, and then have a recruitment process that actually works in the candidate's favor and addresses their concerns about money and security? So we asked candidates then, I'm conscious there's a lot of information on this slide, we asked candidates what the application journey should look like. So the orange bar is the things that candidates think are necessary and expect to see in the recruitment process. And the blue bars are what candidates think are unnecessary, so shouldn't be in the recruitment process. And I'm sure we've all heard and seen these horror stories on LinkedIn where people have been interviewed by 12 different people and done 5 different assessments. It's taken months and it's all very difficult. And candidates, you know, they don't want to put up with that anymore. It's a candidate-driven market. They have plenty of choice. And what's really interesting here is candidates are very definitely expecting to see an in-person interview. So we all got used to video interviewing during the pandemic, but actually it looks like that pendulum has swung right back with 67% of people expecting to do a face-to-face interview. Likewise, having a CV, the majority of candidates expect to have to submit a CV. Now, what's really interesting there is we know that unstructured interviews and CVs are generally pretty poor ways of assessing effectively how well somebody's going to do in the role, and they're both full of bias. So when we look further down here, having assessments and tests and tasks and assignment and work-based assessments, which are actually far more effective tools, candidates aren't expecting to see those. So going back to the recruiter research earlier, we talked about what initiatives are recruiters looking to do to make their hiring process fairer. If we want to phase out CVs, if we want to move towards more integrated assessments and anonymous applications and structured interviews, it's not just hiring managers who are resistant to that change, it's actually candidates themselves. So some real food for thought there about how do we make changes to the process without putting the candidates off. So I want to leave you with a few thoughts in terms of our interpretation of what does this all mean. Well, firstly, everybody in talent acquisition is maxed out, getting stressed. That doesn't look like it's going to improve in the short term. So I think what I'd say is, look after yourself, look after your teams, prioritize your well-being. We're all in this for the long run. Secondly, there is technology out there which can help reduce the administration burden, take some of the manual work off you, and therefore free up your time to be able to focus on value-add talent acquisition activities rather than just feeding the machine constantly. I think we all have to bear in mind that it is a candidate-driven market. There are concerns out there about cost of living, but around 50% of candidates are willing to move job. If we can design a process that engages with them, addresses their concerns and shows them what they want, there's a huge untapped pool of talent out there for your organization. And then when you're designing that process, think about making it easy. The vast majority of job searches are from mobile devices, often very, very simple queries. Let's have effective job ads that aren't just a cut and paste of a 4-page job description. Make your ads engaging. Think about a really slick, simple process to get the candidates into your funnel, because they don't want to spend ages doing this. And if it takes too long, they will drop out and they will go elsewhere. So thank you for joining us today. Everybody who registered will get a copy of the research. We'll email those out to you. And we're also always interested to know what topics you'd like to hear about. So if you have any ideas of things you'd like to hear, please do drop them in the Q&A or put them in the chat, and we can arrange our webinars to focus on those sorts of things. You can scan this QR code as well, and you'll receive our guide on how to build a compelling business case. So one of those things that helps reduce the stress is if you've got the resource and the technology you need to make your job easier and more effective, getting the buy-in from senior leadership is really key to that. So at this point, I will say thank you. I'll open up to any questions. Okay, I can see a question from Mel. Thank you for this. How do you suggest that jobs ads are made more engaging? So a great question, Mel. I think this is something that came up at an event I was at very recently, where most recruiters in the room sort of know that their job ads are terrible. They tend to be cut and paste of the job description, which is often 2 pages of text, can have all sorts of internal jargon in. We saw some great examples at this event I was at where people had made the job ads much shorter, more descriptive, tell the candidate what they want to know. Firstly, list the salary. There's overwhelming evidence that if you include the salary in the job ad itself, you get far more relevant people applying. And if you describe what is going to be required of you, a bit about pay and benefits, something, what's going to be expected of you in the role. We also have something that we use for our job ads in our platform, which will assess the job ad in terms of how many words are in there. So, the shorter the better. Use of bullet points to make things easy to read. So there's something called the Fleisch reading score, which is about making a piece of text really easy to read, and also thinking about gender biased words. So we have an advert assistant in the Tribepad platform that helps you make a shorter, fairer, more engaging job ad. So I'd certainly look at things like that. Thanks for that question. Okay, any other questions? Okay, just the one. Right, well, in that case, we'll finish up there and say thank you very much, and we hope to see you on our next webinar. Thanks very much. Goodbye.